Welcome back, everybody. Mr. Young here, computer science and IT teacher at Webster Groves High School. This is part 4 in our web design series discussing how to connect GitHub to Brackets so that we can save our work from our local computer onto a GitHub server for backup purposes and also down the road to be able to collaborate. Well, collaboration is where our 4th video is going to take us. And we're going to take a little field trip here. We are looking at GitHub's guides webpage. And you see the link up there in my address bar, guides.github.com/introduction/flow. And their documentation here really does a great job of explaining what is the process for working on a team and using GitHub and branches. Okay, so the diagram here is going to explain what the key term here is. So, creating a branch. What is a branch? Well, if you look on this line up here, this bold line across the top is indicating the master project. What is the project in general? So this is going to be the project that we actually deploy and make available to the public. In the case of a web design student, this is going to be the project that you actually give to me. You're deploying it to me for a grade and for evaluation. But we're trying to simulate as much as possible of what it would be like to be a real-world programmer working on a team and needing to collaborate. So you will see this main line again is referring to the master branch. This is where the main project, the final product, is going to be submitted on GitHub. So what we're going to do is we're going to veer away from the master branch and make our own little branches. And what is the purpose of a branch? Well, it says when you're working on a project, you're going to have a bunch of different features or ideas in progress at any given time. Some of which are ready to go and others which are not. Branching exists to help you manage this workflow. So what do they mean by that? Well, as a team, you've probably already brainstormed what your website is going to be about and what features you would like to have implemented. Maybe in the process, you decide, okay, our drop-down menus look great. So we're going to put those onto the master branch because we're satisfied with the way that those menus work and everything looks great. Some programmers would say, well, I would even wait to the very end of the project before putting anything on the master. Again, up to the team. So what we're going to say is maybe we want to add some kind of jQuery image slider on our main page, but we're not sure how to do it. And at the same time, one of your teammates is responsible for embedding maybe a Twitter feed. Well, you don't want to have to work on the exact same file as the person with the job of working on the Twitter feed embedment. Maybe that's because they're going to take longer than you. Maybe it's because you're worried about damaging the file in some way while it's under construction, and now the teammate that's working on Twitter, they can't get it to their aspect to work and see if it's working because you damaged the file while it's still under construction. So what branching allows you to do is to pull a copy of a file away from the team, a clone version of the file, and work on it in complete isolation from the rest of your team. See if it works, show it to your teammates, and if it does work, then you can merge it back onto the master branch and make it available for the rest of the team. If your idea doesn't work well or is taking more time than you thought, that is not going to cause any delay from the rest of your team because you're working on a separate branch, a separate path from the rest of them. So you're not delaying, inhibiting them in any way, and you can just take your time, given that you stay within your deadline, right? But you can take your time and get it to work, and you do not merge your corrected or updated file to the group until it's ready. Now, GitHub does allow you to set up the roles of teammates on GitHub, so maybe only one person on your team is allowed or has the ability to approve changes to the master branch. So maybe I don't fully trust all of my teammates, or if I'm in a company, maybe I'm the boss and they're not, and it's up to me to decide whether or not their changes meet my boss level expectations. So maybe the teammate that was supposed to put the jQuery image slider together on the main page didn't meet my expectations for the way it should look or the way it functions. They're requesting to push it live into the master page, And I'm saying, listen, no, I don't want you to do that yet. You need to make some corrections. So there is the ability to go through and actually kind of regulate which teammates can push things to the master branch and who can't. Just want to mention that in case that is very important for you to prevent teammates from just, putting everything out there on the master branch and creating more problems than good. You probably want to set up some, regulatory measures for who gets to make the final choices so that you don't really have, a bunch of rogue employees working completely independent of one another, but somehow they're supposed to produce one cohesive project together. That would be hard. Okay, so that's making a branch. As we move along here a little bit in our tutorial, while we're working on our branch, we're allowed to make commits. And it says once your branch has been created, it's time to start making changes. Whenever you add, edit, or delete a file, you're making a commit and adding them to your specific branch. This process of adding commits keeps track of your progress as you work on a feature branch. Commits also create a transparent history of your work that others can follow to understand what you've done and why. Now, just because you're working on your own branch doesn't mean that other teammates can't follow your work. There actually is a follow button on GitHub. It doesn't mean they can't look at your code and see what you're doing. So it's not like, you're working under the blanket and no one can see what you're doing or in your own little tent. They can still see what you're doing, but your work is not in any way crossing over with their work or causing any kind of problems. It says each commit has an associated commit message, which is a description explaining why a particular change was made. And I mentioned that. Okay, so we know about commits. What else can we do on our own branch? We can open a pull request. Now, pull request is different than pulling and fetching. Pulling and fetching is whenever there's a newer file in the repository that you as a teammate do not currently have, and you're fetching it or requesting a copy of it to replace yours on your local repository. This is a pull request. Pull requests initiate discussion about your commits. Because they're tightly integrated with the underlying Git repository, anyone can see exactly what changes would be merged if they accept your request. You can open a pull request at any point during the development process. When you have little or no code but want to share some screenshots or general ideas, when you're stuck and needing help or advice, or when you're ready for someone to review your work. By using GitHub's @mention system in your pull request message, you can ask for feedback from specific people on your team. Very similar to using an @ symbol for maybe Twitter, so that you can actually make sure that a teammate or a user actually sees your message. Okay, a lot of pull requests are used for my research if a teammate is wanting to request or submit an idea. Maybe as a team you didn't know that the header doesn't look great, and the teammate says, "Hey, I'm going to suggest that we change the header or the footer to do X, Y, and Z, do different stuff." They can put a pull request out there, and then maybe the supervisor can approve or deny that pull request before work can be done. Okay, moving on here. Discuss and review your code, and I'll show you that here in a minute, but there is the ability for you to actually kind of chat and discuss ideas. Once a pull request has been opened, the person or team reviewing your changes may have questions or comments. Perhaps the coding style doesn't match project guidelines. The change is missing unit test. Or maybe everything looks great and props are in order. Pull requests are designed to encourage and capture this type of conversation. You can also continue to push to your branch in light of discussion and feedback about your commits. If someone comments that you forgot to do something, or there is a bug in the code, you can fix it in your branch and push up the change. GitHub will show you new commits and any additional feedback you may receive in the unified pull request view. Continuing on, this is a very happy stage when you're working in a collaborative team, and that is the deployment. With GitHub, you can deploy from a branch for final testing and production before merging to the master. Once your pull request has been reviewed and the branch passes your test, you can deploy your changes to verify them in production. If your branch causes issues, you can roll it back by deploying the existing master into production. Okay, and then lastly, this is the final step. Everyone is satisfied. The supervisor is satisfied. Merging. Now that your changes have been verified in production, verified meaning they've satisfactorily met the team or the supervisor's expectations, it is time to merge your code into the master branch. Once merged, pull requests preserve a record of the historical changes to your code. Because they're searchable, they let anyone on the team go back in time to understand why and how a decision was made. Okay? So again, this link is up here if you want to go through and look at this. I thought this was really an excellent way to explain how the collaboration works and the steps of working on your own branch. Okay, so if we take a look over at GitHub's webpage for our project, you'll notice we have a couple of tabs here. We have issues, and issues are used to track to-dos, bugs, features. What is it? Maybe some new feature that you want the project to have, so you can actually go in here and issue one. We have pull requests. They help you collaborate on code with other people. As a pull requests are created, they'll appear here in a searchable and filtered lists. Okay, so we just talked about those. My favorite area is actually projects. And what projects allows you to do is to set up the individual task within your project. So I can say jQuery image slider. Okay, and that's one project. And I usually come in here and say basic. And what this is talking about is what columns will show up here in a second. And I'll show you this in here in a second. I can say create project, and these are the columns where work is going to show up so that you as a team know where you are and what still needs to be done. This is one of the biggest things as a teacher working with students in teams is while they're able to communicate about just about everything else, one of the things they tend to not as well do when it comes to communicating is discuss where they are in the project. They don't tend to update each other on who's done what, how far they are, if they're behind, who needs help. They just kind of work until the bell rings, and then they don't realize that, you know, teammate number 3 was way behind and they could have stepped in earlier and helped that person or provided guidance, and they just didn't know it because there's a lack of communication. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to archive everything over here in the to-do. To just give you an idea of what it looks like. So maybe in my jQuery image slider, the first task is to get images for slider. That's going to be the first to-do item. So I'm going to say, okay, there it is. You see it's there. Then maybe I'll add another one that says create jQuery code for slider and add it. So you can add in all of the specific tasks or to-do items that the jQuery team is responsible for. Now, maybe in a student project, the jQuery team consists of one student. Or if it's a class project, maybe as a teacher, you might assign different projects to individual groups of students, and then they collectively put one website together if that's manageable. As a collaborator to this project, I can say when things are in progress and when they're done. So maybe I'm a teammate and I'm going to go ahead and tackle getting images for the slider. And it sets up a little progress bar and it says, hey, listen, you only had 2 tasks. Right now, 50% of the tasks are in progress. So this is a place where you can really keep track of what's currently being done. And maybe I've got all my images, so I'll move this over to here and say, okay, this one's now in progress. And you can see 50% now in green is completed and 50% is still being worked on. So this is an excellent way to go through and manage what is happening. One other thing you can do too is we can actually set up some automation. And automation means that certain actions you take while using your applications can cause things to show up under to do or in progress or done. So I can say that I want the program or the website to automatically enable tracking for any new items. So if any issue that gets posted under issues will automatically show up as a to-do item. If anything gets reopened that was previously closed, I'm going to make that show up as a to-do item. Okay? If I go over in progress, what makes something automatically show up in the in progress column? Well, I don't want to do any of these down here for pull requests yet, but they're open for consideration. I'm going to say if anybody reopens something, automatically make it in progress. And that pop-up said, wait a second, you said if it's reopened, it's a to-do item. Well, if it's being reopened, it's not something that hasn't been started yet, right? It's being started. So I'm going to say move that over to in progress. And lastly, if there's anything available under done, if we close out any issues, they will show up